Welcome to Worlds Apart, Words Together, where best friends share laughter, stories, and an unbreakable bond. It is Tuesday, June 11th, and I am here with my co host, Aaliyah. Hello.
Hello, how are we this week?
We are doing pretty good. Um,
Nice.
Lots of adulting going on, which is always a fun little thing to add to your
Obviously.
weekly schedule.
Yes.
But, I've been feeling quite neutral, but also excited, but also really sad.
That's fair.
Like, I've just been feeling a lot of emotions, and I know I need to have a good cry to just let all the emotions out. Um, but it hasn't come yet, but I'm sure it will
Oh, yeah, it
at
will
some
come.
point. It will eventually. But other than that, we are good. And today we are going to be talking about a very fun topic, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
so today we're going to be talking about um, the hidden truth of time management, essentially. So, a common thing that everyone says is, "Oh, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that." But in reality, as we'll go in further today, it's we make time for what we truly want and what we really put at the forefront, and then from there, it's just kind of like filling in the gaps with what else needs to go in under that. But it's just one of those things that we use as an excuse, and we're just going to dive into ways to fill up your time and your day with things that you truly want and things that truly matter to you, and simultaneously learning to say no to some of those things that sneak in there.
yeah, it might be good to start out by sharing a little personal experience for this. Do you have something on this topic that you think fits well with what we're talking about today?
um let's see, personal topic. I mean, I'm pretty good at making sure whatever needs to get done gets done. I would have to
Okay, then
say the
maybe let me
one.
rephrase it. Like, are there things that you have noticed in the last year that needed more priority than before, or just like a priority switch?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, going into this topic being, we make time for what we really want, either consciously or unconsciously. For me, the biggest kind of like knowledge and awakening is understanding what is your priority, because when you're in school, when we were athletes, like that was your priority. Like you were an athlete, you were in school, like it was kind of dictated to you. And I think a common theme, not just with myself, but I think also like with you and probably many other people, like once you kind of leave that rigidity of like you have to go to classes, you have to do this, you're also an athlete, you have to go to practices, and everything is kind of dictated. You, when that disappears, at least for me, you kind of are just left with, okay, now what is my priority? Like,
Yes.
what am I supposed to focus on? Like, what is what should be at the top of my priority list, and what do I even want, what is important to me, and it raises a bunch of those questions. So for me, I think that's been the biggest thing, is rationalizing and understanding what is important with me at this point in my life and what is important for me to do on a daily basis at this point in my life. And some of those, just to give examples, is like staying active, eating well, um, kind of now, well, for over the past month, it was like just filling my time with something to be active with. But now that I know that I'm moving and all of this stuff, prioritizing what needs to get done when, what um, papers need to be filled out and submitted, and looking at apartments, looking at how to pack up and what needs to go with us right away and what doesn't. So a bunch of those things have now become a priority, just figuring out the logistics of August. So yeah, I guess that's probably been the biggest shift for me.
Yeah, I feel similar. Um, like you said, all through college, my priorities were classes and swimming. And that priority has very much shifted. And last year it was school, but since I guess I don't even know when, maybe like February, my priority has been making sure Michael can play volleyball in Europe and finding ways for him to do that. And that led to the past 3 months just collecting paperwork, finding a job, making sure we have everything for us to submit his application for residency, but also making sure that we're going to have a place to live. We're going to have a good enough income. We're, just all the logistics of him moving to another country and us starting a life together have been the priority. And yes, I still have school, but that's kind of on a low burner right now just because I feel like I will get it done regardless. And as long as I do what my supervisor wants me to do, I'll be fine. Um, but this just needs my attention more. And well, we've had some tough conversations because I've just been like so stressed and so focused on that I haven't really given myself the time to work out or to just relax. Like my mind has been on that for a few months now, and I think what I'm waiting for me to let it all out is the moment we submit his residency application,
Fair.
because by that time like all that stress is like, okay, I don't need to stress about it anymore because it's
Mhm.
filled out, it's submitted.
Yeah, for sure.
um but I think, in life we're gonna have temporary priorities,
Hmm.
like the ones that you have now and the ones I have now, and they will not become a priority at some point, but then we'll shift to having other things that we need to put our minds to and our attention to. But I also believe that we have permanent priorities.
Hmm.
And let's dive a little bit into what those permanent priorities would look like.
Yeah, I mean, I think priorities comes in a variety of fashions. Like you have priorities for life, you have priorities for relationships, you have priorities for a variety of different segments. Um, and I think the more permanent ones are the ones that you never want to give up or have to lose. And I think that's a good way to kind of look at it.
Yeah.
Like for example, your friendship or your relationship would be a priority if it's something you constantly want to work on, constantly want to keep engaged, constantly want to keep you know um, moving forward in. Same thing like financial priorities, like okay, like you want to be able to take a vacation, you want to be set up for retirement, you want to do all of whatever your financial priority would
Yeah.
be. And it's things like that. They're more, I feel like, big picture type of ideas more than like this small nitty gritty day to day kind of thing.
I agree with you, and I would say one priority that is permanent right now is doing this podcast.
Yeah.
It's we set aside time to work on this project, and even if a Tuesday where we usually record doesn't work out, we will look into our schedules to find a different time and we block out that time. So if anything else pops up, we're like, no, that time is a no can do because we're recording. And that is, I think, what you can look at our priorities are things that you wouldn't sacrifice for something else.
Yes.
Um,
I like that.
because that's really what it is. Because, if working out is really a priority for you, you're going to find time in your day that you can go and work out. Like for me, the last 2 weeks, I barely worked out because I didn't make it a priority. Um, Instead, like if I wanted to, I could have worked out at night, but I'm like, no, I want to use my night or evening to just sit down and relax after the stressful day that I've just had.
Mhm.
So it wasn't one of my priorities. But if it was, I would have been like, I'm going to work out because it is one of my priorities. Um, so I believe that having that mindset of, I think what we have in our title of like, you have time or you make time for the things that you truly want is very true.
Yes, 100%. And that can be consciously or unconsciously. Like you can have something that has come up or that you've done so much that you've made it a priority and maybe you don't even know it. And then you have those things that you probably don't want to do, but you know it has to get done. A lot of times for a lot of people, that could be like homework. No one wants to sit down and do homework for classes that they're not interested in. But
But it's going to
you have,
have
yeah,
to be done.
if you want to be a good student, it's going to have to be done. And you just have to make that a priority. So there are things in our life that we may not necessarily always enjoy doing or love to do, but they do still have to be a priority.
And I do think that can kind of tie into you can make that a priority because it is leading you to something that you do want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have this career or this job that you want to pursue. Well, before you can, you need to go to school. You need to finish those classes.
Mm-hmm.
So you can always keep in mind to be like, okay, no, I don't necessarily like this. But I know it will bring me to what I want. So let's say for example I had this potential job that had irregular working shifts, so sometimes you would work through the night, sometimes you wouldn't, um, and I was really not looking forward to that because I didn't want to have to spend the night at my job. But I knew like if I am going to do that, it eventually will get me to a position that I would very much like. um, so that would be a very like considerate option, because it will bring you closer to your actual priority.
Yeah, and like for me right now, I'm kind of in this very in between stage, very transitional stage. And for me, it's, my priority is making sure the whole transition of starting up at UConn is uh, as seamless as possible. Obviously, it's not going to be 100% because nothing ever is. But, going through and making sure all you've like I've gone through all the emails, I've gotten all the information, I've submitted all the right paperwork, all of that stuff like I could really care less of doing, but you have to get it done
Yeah.
or you're not going to get that position, and it's a position I really am looking forward to. So I think as our first kind of main point here that we're trying to make, it's that you first have to know what you want and what drives you and what your end kind of goal is, or what is something that you're striving for, and be honest with yourself about what those are. And then that way
Yeah.
you can prioritize the steps that are needed to get to um, that ultimate kind of goal. And some ways, depending upon who you are, it's just saying them out loud, or writing them down, or I don't know, journaling them, which would be same thing as kind of like writing them down, rehearsing them, reciting them to yourself in a mirror. There's lots of ways to kind of like instate and in what that kind of goal would be.
Or even sharing them with a
Yes.
partner, with a friend, with a parent, like stating your goals or things that you want to achieve, which are basically goals, which is a different way of saying it, with someone else, make them a lot more true and also reachable.
Yeah, and it also
Um,
lets you have like almost an accountability partner or a person or a group of people, because they know, and you don't want to fall short of something that someone else already knows and has an idea of
yeah,
what you are striving for. So it kind of helps with the accountability as well.
yeah. And I think fitting into that of like, you when you figured out what it is that you want to prioritize, also take a step back and look at the things that might not really add to that or help you in the process.
Oh, 100.
um like if you have things that make you stressed out, or if you notice I'm on social media too much and it's getting me out of bed way too late, like I had this morning, it's like, set these boundaries for yourself but also eliminate those things out of your life. And it's easier said than done, 100%, but you got to take that step somewhere. So it can even be as small as not bringing your phone into the bedroom because you don't want to have that distraction. If that helps you, totally do it. And that's just a small example, but I'm sure there's plenty more.
Well, I mean, another kind of prime example for, I think, people our age is um, you want to either you're jump starting your career, or you're going into like starting your fitness journey, or any kind of major kind of like change. We're in our mid 20s. A lot of times, some bigger changes start to occur,
Yeah.
and you may have to, like, if you're starting your health journey, for example, maybe you say no to going out and having drinks every weekend. Maybe make it every other weekend or once a month. Doesn't mean you can't do it and you have to fully eliminate it, but be mindful of, is this action, is this event, is this habit that I'm doing benefiting where I want to go and what I consider a priority. Similar with like your career, um, putting in a little bit of an extra time and effort, making sure things are done, a little bit above and beyond to make a good impression for that
Yeah.
first couple months, first year, could go a long way on how people perceive you. And it doesn't mean make work first and put work first, because obviously having a balance is extremely important, but just doing a little bit extra.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to do a write up or something, and just make sure don't, make sure it's a little bit extra in how it's done. And it can be very little like that.
Yeah. I really like that point, and I think that is a great way to start, and also by looking at your personal situation, because as we continue to say, and we always say, everybody's life and everybody's decisions and everybody's priorities are very different. So look at your situation and think of what are things that are really benefiting me and could benefit me for that job or for my fitness journey or whatever it is, and what are things that are limiting me in that process. And, if you need help or if you need a person to keep you accountable, reach out to someone and being like, hey, I want to do this, but I need someone to keep me accountable. Can you do that for me? If not, we're always here to help, and we keep each other accountable too. So I think that would be for anyone a good place to start.
Yeah, and I think kind of going along that similarity of understanding what is limiting, and either cutting back on that or completely getting rid of it in your life really aligns with how you should set boundaries, because a lot of times those boundaries, yes, they do work both ways, but those boundaries need to be set around those things that you're doing that are not helping with getting to where you want or aligning with your priority or anything like that.
Yeah. And we've talked about setting boundaries
Mhm.
before when it comes to like friendships or relationships. But it's very similar in this area. So it's a recurring topic, and I feel like a lot of our topics that we talk about kind of intertwine with each other, and a lot of the things that we mention can be applied to different areas and aspects of your life. Um, because you're gonna need different boundaries at work than you're gonna need in friendships or relationships, but you're still gonna need boundaries. Um, and it might be difficult for you to set them at the beginning, but in reality, like, you are the most important person in your life. So you gotta think about you and what it is that you want to do, and it doesn't matter what other people think.
Yeah, for sure. And if you also are someone who reads the blog, we have a sentence under our segment of setting boundaries at I really like, and that's saying no to something that does not align with your goals is often saying yes to what does. And I think that is really a great way to summarize, because not everything is black and white in life, obviously, but a lot of times there are numerous situations where saying no to something, um, there's a 180 to that, which means you are saying yes to something else.
Yeah,
So if you're
I like
saying,
that. I like that quote a lot. We should use it into our next Monday motivation.
we should, yeah. But it's one of those things where, like, if you're going to say yes to something, make sure that yes is going to align with whatever priority you have. Because if you say no to it, or if you're saying yes to it, then you're saying no to the opposite of that, basically.
Yeah.
So like if you say, family is a priority for you, for example, um, or like we'll take my situation. I hold family to be a priority. Like, we're not all super close, but I know if a family member is in need or needs help with something, like I'm genuinely like one of the very first people who will offer to help.
Yes.
Because it's just one, that's how I was raised, but also it's just what I believe family is for. But if I was, for example, to get a call from my grandmother, and like I did last week, she needed help changing ink in her printer. Now, I could have said no, and I didn't really have anything else going on that day, so I could have still said no and then did nothing pretty much all day. But I chose to say yes because it is a priority. Family is a priority of mine. So I chose to say yes and go over there and help her. And did it turn into an all day ordeal? Basically, yes. And did I still have things of my own to get done? Yes. But because family is a priority, I said yes to the situation that would align with that. And I said no to me having 6 hours to myself. So that is an example where saying yes or saying no very much matters, because one way or the other it will be supporting or not supporting your priority.
Very true. I have nothing else to add to that because you gave a wonderful example of that. And it is true because all things in life have opposites, and that situation or whatever situation, and that you prioritize family. If you had something else going on that was more of a priority at that moment, you might have made a different decision. But you kind of weighed your options and you were like, well, I'm going to do either nothing all day, maybe get a few things done, or I'm going to help out a family member who needs my help right now, which is a priority of yours. Um, and it's okay to think about those things too. Like, you don't have to make a decision right here, right now. It's like if you need some time to think about the decision you're making or what is your priority, what am I going to do next, that is totally okay.
And I think it's
And
also important to notice or to think about, you can rank your priorities. We kind of
yeah,
implied it as we've been talking, but I think it's something that's just important to recognize, is that you can rank your priorities, and they can change ranks based on the day and what you have going on. So I think that's just something to keep in mind, that it's not like, oh, family is always third priority and I'm going to base my day around family being third priority. No, because what if a
right.
day you don't really have anything going on and then you get a call like I did from my grandmother that needed help with her ink? And I'm like, well, that just became my top priority for the day because I didn't
Yeah.
really have any other priorities going on. And so I think
I
it's
have
important
a
to change that.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I I have a good, I think, example of that too, where I always have dinner with my family. Like, we always sit at a table and eat together, and they're a priority of mine. But Michael is also a priority of mine. But then today, during dinner, right as we sat down, Michael FaceTimed me, and I told him, like, "Hey, I'm having dinner right now. I can't talk." He's a priority of mine, and if I wasn't doing anything, yes, I would have called him. But I'm not going to step out of my family dinner because he's calling me.
Yeah.
Um, but if I was just watching something with my parents and he called me, I will step out of watching something to call Michael because he's also a priority.
Yeah.
So, as Leah said, like, whatever your priorities are, they don't always have to be ranked in the same order. Like, you can know what is important to you and you can kind of fluctuate between them. And I think that will go into kind of our last like point about this, is that it requires some flexibility, but life in general requires flexibility. Um, you got to be okay with things not always aligning in the way that you think they will, or things not happening in the way you think they will. Because life doesn't happen in the way anyone thinks it will. And it's frustrating, but at the same time, it is frustrating. Yeah. That's all I have to say on that. It's just frustrating.
I think it's also important to kind of understand that your priorities, or the way I picture it, which again can be right or wrong, and it could help someone or not. But your priorities are kind of like little bubbles that all float inside a circle. So you have like your priority circle, and all your priorities just like bebop in there. And depending upon what that day is, um, how that day is going, or that particular day is, flowing, your priorities will, instead of bebopping around, then they line up
Yeah.
in a particular way, and they line up in a particular way different every day, or potentially different in every day. And I think it's important just to understand what you want in that bubble and what you want be bopping around in that bubble. And it doesn't necessarily matter how they
Yeah.
align for that particular day, because no matter what, they are all a priority.
I hope this makes sense to you guys.
Yeah,
Cuz
sorry. I'm
it
just
make
like,
I mean, it makes sense to me, but it doesn't necessarily have to make sense to anyone else.
well, that's what I said. It's how I perceive it, it's how I think about it,
Yeah.
and maybe it
But
helps
you
someone.
also are very much like a box thinker. Like you
Yeah.
have little boxes within your brain system to be like, this goes in my friendship box, this goes in
Yeah.
my work box. And some people don't organize their thoughts or their feelings in that way. So it might be a bit confusing to to them
No,
what
for
you mean by
sure.
that.
Yeah.
I can maybe simplify it, not necessarily simplify it, but added a different perspective. Is that you react to situations, you make decisions on situations, and your attention shifts. Therefore, your priority shifts. You have this full list of things that are important to you, and some things might be on high heat, and some things might be on lower heat, depending on how your day is going, how your week is going, how the month is going. And I think that kind of takes us full circle when I was
Hmm.
first talking about this topic, where um, my working out has been on a lower pit and low heat because I decided to prioritize more relaxation time because I was so stressed. All the Michael stuff, residency stuff, was on high heat because it needs to get done.
Hmm.
But once Michael shit is done, my working out can be on higher heat again.
Yes. I think
It's
that's a
just a
really good
different
way to put it.
it's a different way of looking at it. And as we always say, everyone has different ways of looking at things, and just however works for you. I like to think of it as pit, higher heat, lower heat, whatever. Leah likes to think of bubbles and boxes. But
I can
whatever
think of it
floats
in
your boat.
any way anyone chooses. I have that ability.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. But for yourself to organize it, like you like that structure, which is totally fine. And nobody's going to tell you otherwise. Like, if that works for you, it works for you. Same like the way some people budget doesn't work for me. I get confused looking at it, but it totally works for them. So they should totally do that. So that's kind of my little rant about that.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, there's not really too much more that we can kind of add. I think also, like, if you're someone who, or if you catch yourself saying, "Oh, well, I don't have time for that," or "I wish I could but I can't," reevaluate your life. I urge you to sit down and really think about what you're saying and why you're saying it and what you're saying it to. Like, if it's
Yeah.
something that you really wish you could do and really want to do,
You'll
then
make
make it a
time.
priority. Because if you're not making the time to do it, then it's really not that important to you, or it's not a priority, and or it's not a priority for you. So
And
if you're
maybe it's not a priority right now. Like, it might just not fit into the schedule, the life that you have in this particular moment. But it could change in a few months when things are died down or you are more comfortable at your job or whatever. But then put it on your priority box or list or pit for next time, for in a few months. That's
Yeah,
okay.
and it's also good to know that as prior or as your life changes, your priorities change. And I think
Yeah.
we have said this in various ways in pretty much every episode that as your life shifts, priority shifts, everything, your mindset shifts, everything, your goals shift, everything shifts. So what is a priority now, what is a priority 5 years ago will probably be different than what a priority is in 3 months, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, whatever it might be. And be okay with that. And also recognize, I think we haven't really pointed this out, which I think is pretty important. Not everything can be a priority. You
No.
cannot go through and say, I have 50 priorities. No, no. Some of those are no. Like, that's just no. I don't have any
I'd
other
say
word for no.
make a top 3 or 5.
I would say between, it depends how type A you are. For me, I would say it's like 3 to 8. I think 5 is a good middle number to have. But also I'm like, my brain just operates 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. Because
But
it could
I
also be like too many
yeah,
priorities. Like if you
there.
have 8 priorities, it's like, damn, that's a lot of priorities.
Exactly. You can't treat everything as a priority because then things are gonna start slipping through and they won't be a like you may want them to be a priority, but at that point in time they're kind of just there. Um, and if you're someone who's just trying to figure this out, start with like three. Just start with three
Yeah.
things that are probably most important to you. And
And
for
what it is that you want to make time for during your day.
exactly, and for I guess kind of just off the handle, I think we should give like our top three priorities.
Damn, okay. You go first.
I go first. Okay. Um, my relationships are a priority for me. So like my relationship with Hunter, obviously our relationship, um, those are important to me. Another priority is just living a healthy lifestyle, but also not be like just yeah, living a healthy, balanced lifestyle is also a priority for me. And then probably my third, like I said, I tend to operate on like closer to 5 to 8. But my third priority would be well, we'll group relationships and family into one. So then my third priority right now is getting through this move and starting my new position. So that's probably my top three right now.
I am really boring because I have very similar ones. To me, just social contacts, and then not necessarily super many people that I talk to, but just the people that I talk to, I want to prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that that contact stays consistent and meaningful. And that includes friendships, but also my relationship with Michael and family relationships.
Yeah.
Especially because I've been gone for 5 years. I feel like I have a lot of catching up to do with my family that I haven't seen for all that time. So I will try to meet up. I will try to make time for them. So I think that is definitely a priority. Um, my second priority is my physical health and my emotional well being. Um, I have to say, my emotional well being hasn't been the greatest for the last like 2, 3 weeks. But I think I can slowly pick that back up with reading and just making more time for relaxation and really putting my mind to some things that I enjoy. And my third one is definitely also um, making sure Michael can come here with a valid residency permit. Um, that might be on the top of my list right now. just because we're at like the final stage of trying to complete it. One of the priorities that I had was finding a job, but I did that, so that is checked off the list.
So that's kind of wrapped in with the whole getting Michael over there.
Yeah. Um, but those three priorities I think are right now the most important, but I have to say the first two, family, friends, and physical health and mental well-being, um, are permanent priorities for me.
Mhm.
Like I want to make sure that I have a good healthy life for as long as I can live and I am on this earth. Um, and I want to make sure that the people that I love and the people that I'm close to know that I love them, and I want to spend time with them as much as I can.
Yeah, I think those are good
So,
three. And so, like, we shared our three, and obviously, our three are kind of similar but still different. And your guys's, and anyone who's listening, like, your guys's can be similar or they can be completely different. And that's all right. No one's going to have the same. And it's just, narrowing down those three type of, larger things that you really want to put into your priority. Um,
yeah. And we are curious to hear what your priorities are. So either we'll have like a comment section with this episode for you to leave a comment saying whatever your priorities are, or you can post it on our social media. Like, we're going to make a little clip about this episode, like a little sneak preview, and we'll ask the same question, like, what are your priorities? So you can leave it onto like our TikTok or our Instagram, or you can just DM our um, or message us Worlds Apart, Words Together on Instagram or TikTok to let us know. And we would love to hear your guys' priorities and opinions. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We're open books, basically. Uh, so, yeah, I think that kind of concludes it for
yeah,
today.
100%. I think we've gone full circle. And as Mara said, if anyone is listening to this all the way through, thank you for joining us as we offer a glimpse into the world of true friendship, where even though worlds may seem apart, the connection remains strong.
Thank you, guys. Bye.